Hello again, ex-shed dweller. I thought I would share with you this program that I wrote that I call Array 12.8. In case you're new to the term array, it's not the word array in programming actually means a series of data that repeats itself or is nested in itself and is the information that a program uses to generate a sound or a graphic or what have you. It's the information that the program uses to produce something. I can't get enough of this programming language. I thought that you being a super techie might be fascinated to see that even someone who's not musically inclined can play around with this stuff. So I'm going to kind of walk you through this if you don't mind, and if you do, just send me a message back. I'm sure you're more than honest enough to tell me. But this first block here, or first line, number 2, is telling me how I want to synchronize each sample to real time. So it'll be counting in seconds, and I'm declaring this data to be symbolized by the letter T. And then, so time will deduct whatever percentage of time is has passed since the next sample started. So basically, it helps keep all the music in sync, so that way, when I'm changing a program and then adding it over on top of a previous program, they're not playing out of sync. I'll show you what I mean. This is my sine oscillator. It creates a sine wave, which in audio programming is the most natural artificial sound. Has a flute quality to it. It's just a straight S-shaped sound wave. And then pan 2 tells it to go to both speakers. This M-pan symbolizes or represents that data set that will instruct the program what to do. And then it says, okay, we're going to connect all that to my digital audio converter or digital analog converter. So you're taking digital data and then converting it to audio analog so that it goes directly to the speakers as voltage. Okay, now this is my volume. I have it set to 0.07, which if you look at that on a dial, it would be like turning to the 7th notch. The highest you can go is really 1.1 or 0.100. On gain means that it's on, and this says turn the volume off. So sound on, sound off. And then these numbers here represent piano keys, ultimately, pitches. These are the MIDI. This is the MIDI numbered key system that a lot of programs use. So instead of using things like C or D, I'm giving them numbers, which is pretty cool looking. Here I'm setting my rhythm. Okay, so X represents a quarter of 1,000 milliseconds. Q represents a quarter of a second. H represents a half of a second, and W represents 1 second. So I line them up here. What you're going to hear are this is an array. You're going to hear this array of sound. Okay, so all these notes are going to be playing randomly. The computer itself will decide which notes to play. I'll explain how in just a minute. The X's here tell the array to play at 250 or a quarter of a second. This is just another way to say a quarter of a second like we did here. I'm just trying to look more sophisticated because, as you know, a second is 1,000 milliseconds. So this is going to stay silent because I'm not going to select this array. This is the first array, this is the second array. I want to hear the first array because they're all going to be divided by the same fraction of a beat. I want a steady, even, boring beat. Okay, and I'm going to call it my do. All right, so then now I'm going to go to my loop. While parenthesis 1 means I'm going to have it play ad infinitum. It's not going to stop until I turn it off myself. Jump down here. For is a logic command. It's going to say, I want you to play for the length of this array, and then back again. You're going to play across the whole spectrum of notes and beats. And it's going to select any pitch between the number 57 and 72 and play them randomly. This is something that the computer itself will decide. And then I'm telling it to sound, sine wave, to sound my sine wave, okay? The S represents this sound wave, okay? And then freak for frequency. So on gain represents, of course, the volume, and I'm connecting it to my audio signal. And then my do, of course, represents my series of notes that I'm going to play via this sound signal. Okay, and then off gain just means turn it off for 1/32 of a second. Okay, so in fractions that would just be a 32nd. I remember that from machining. Okay, how does it sound? Well, you may not like it very much, but the fact that a computer is doing it, I find pretty intriguing. Okay, so basically the computer is saying, okay, I want to play this, then that, and I'm going to change it up as I see fit, because that's what Victor told me to do. Alright, now the great thing about this computer programming language is, let's just say I want to play the same exact program, but at a different rhythm. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll change this array to this one. I'll use my ders instead of my do. So I go down here, and I edit that. I change it to my ders. See that? And then I click replace, add shred. I'm going to add this new program to the old one so that they play two programs at the same time. 1, 2, 3, go. See that? So one's playing at how fast is it playing? One's playing at 25 or a quarter of a second. The other one's playing also at a quarter of a second, but the computer is reading it as this rhythm and that. Okay? Now, if I want to really speed it up, what I do is I change this to 1/8 of a second. All right? And then I replace it. Hear that? It's sped up a little bit. Okay. Now this is highly avant-garde music, not the kind of music you would probably hear at a discotheque or nightclub, but for me this is music. This is pure digital sound. Now the great thing about this is, let me just lower the volume on it. I can just go to my gain and set it to say 0.05. Replace it. And you probably didn't notice it, but it did go down slightly in volume. So I'm going to manually mess with the master volume here on my keyboard and bring that down so it's a little less blaring. Okay. Now, if I want that second program to go away, I go remove shred and it removes the most recent program initiated. Hear that? There's our first program. Okay. Now, that is how ChucK works. Most audio programming languages operate the exact same way, except the syntaxes and the structure of the language may be a little different. The command sets may look a little bit different, but I like this one very, very much because this particular language was designed specifically for electronic music. And as you see, I have total, absolute control over the audio. And everything is generated directly from the sound card on my laptop. It's not sampled, it's not pre-recorded, it's self-generated through the laptop, of course, through the power of electricity. So that's that. Now, what if I want this to go a lot lower in pitch? Well, what I do here is I play a little math game. Here's my array of notes again. I'm going to say I want you to go lower. I'm going to divide you by 4. And that'll bring the frequency down quite significantly. And this is how it'll sound. Could barely hear it because sine waves, once they reach a certain level of frequency, it's very difficult to hear them. So what I'll do is I'll change to a square wave and watch what happens. Square waves are generally much higher in amplitude. So that's what we'll get this. Okay, so now we have a pretty cool jazzy sounding electronic bass line, alright? Like something you would hear in a very strange science fiction film. But yeah, again, this is randomly selected music, selected by the hardware itself, by the main drive. So I'm quite impressed with this. I could just play around with this all day. So yeah, that's that. And then in this program, I actually operate with just frequencies. I don't mess around with MIDI notes. These decimals you see here are frequencies. And so I'm telling the computer to play those frequencies in sequence. Now if you pair that up with this program, it'll sound quite dissonant, but this is what we get. Alright, so I have it playing at 1/8 of a second each frequency, and that's why it's a little fast. Okay, so we'll remove that, go back to our jazzy bass line, and the program says goodnight. So if I'm going to clear everything that I've done, I go way over here and click Clear Virtual Machine. What is the virtual machine? Well, the virtual machine is this environment or this window that comes with the program, and it keeps a chronicle, I guess you could say. It keeps a log of every single program that you're running, so that way you can deduct them and add them as you wish. So I have only one running right now, so if I click this minus sign, it will cancel out that program. Yet the virtual machine will continue timing this session. So with ChucK, you can actually time your sessions down to the I think below the millisecond is the nanosecond, but yeah, pretty quite fine granularity of time there. So that's ChucK. It's too bad we don't live close to each other, because I would really love to work on some music with you. And then what you would do is just click this when it's time for that particular program to play. So it's just a matter of programming. Doesn't really take much musical expertise. So let me know what you think.